Rejection isn't something I've ever handled gracefully. And I think it's because for the longest time, I lived under this illusion that if I was kind enough, loyal enough, supportive enough, then I would be chosen. I grew up as the nice girl. The one who sat quietly in class, never caused trouble, who teachers adored and who other girls trusted with their secrets. But when it came to boys, I always felt invisible. It wasn't that they were cruel or mean to me, but I could see where their eyes went, and it was never in my direction. I remember my first major crush was in 10th grade. His name was Eric, and he was in my English class. He had this messy hair that somehow looked perfect no matter what, and he always smelled like pine and old books, which sounds weird, but in a comforting kind of way. He was smart, funny in a sarcastic way, and he actually read the books we were assigned. I fell for him slowly and then all at once. I became obsessed with how close our desks were, how he'd sometimes glance at my notes, how he smiled when he didn't get caught whispering dumb jokes during group work. And I thought, maybe if I just got a little more confident, if I found the courage to talk to him, he'd see me. So I did what any teenage girl does when she's trying to muster courage. I told my best friend. Her name was Liv. She and I had been inseparable since middle school. Liv had a mouth like a sailor, hair like fire, and a confidence I could only admire from afar. She was the kind of girl who got noticed. So naturally, I told her about my crush on Eric. And at first, she was totally supportive. "You two would actually be cute," she said. "He's always looking at your notebook." That's practically a sign from the universe. That little flicker of validation made my stomach do flips. I remember walking into school the next day thinking maybe today's the day. I'd rehearsed my opening line. Something about the book we were reading, or maybe asking what he thought of the essay topic. I was halfway to my desk when I saw him laughing at something on his phone. And then I saw who was sitting next to him. Liv. She hadn't been in that class before. Apparently, she'd switched sections after her schedule changed. And now she was sitting in the desk next to Eric's. They were laughing at something together, her hand grazing his arm in that casual, effortless way she had. I froze in the middle of the room. My stomach sank. But I smiled. Because what else do you do? Over the next few weeks, I watched it unfold like a car crash in slow motion. She started dressing a little differently. He started waiting for her after class. They shared snacks, exchanged playlists, even started walking home together some days. I never once mentioned what I'd told her. Not because I didn't feel betrayed, but because I kept hoping maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe she still had my back. Then one Friday, I found out they were officially dating. Through Instagram. A picture of them at the park. She was leaning into him, his hand was on her knee, and the caption just said "this one black heart dot." I felt like I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just rejection from Eric. It was rejection from my best friend. Someone I trusted with my heart. And suddenly, I was on the outside of everything. I didn't text her. I didn't comment. I just watched the likes roll in, the mutual friends congratulating them, the world moving forward without me. I went to school Monday and pretended like it didn't matter. I smiled in class, nodded along in group work, acted as if I hadn't just been left behind. But Liv didn't even try to explain. That hurt worse than anything. Rejection doesn't always come in the form of a no, sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's being replaced. Sometimes it's realizing that your pain isn't even important enough to be acknowledged. That was my first lesson. And it wouldn't be the last. And then it was like something in me switched. Not in a dramatic, I'm going to reinvent myself kind of way, more like a slow, aching numbness that settled into my bones. I stopped checking Instagram. I muted Liv's stories, even though the temptation to peek was unbearable some nights. I didn't want to see another photo of her in my hoodie, or Eric's arm draped over her shoulder like she hadn't completely blown a hole through me. At school, they acted normal. Sat together at lunch. Walked the halls like we hadn't once made friendship bracelets in her bedroom or dared each other to prank call the cute guys in our class. Eric even tried to say hi once in the hallway. I looked right through him like he was air. The worst part? No one really noticed. Maybe they assumed we just grew apart. Or maybe it was easier for them not to ask. The truth is, I didn't know how to talk about it. How do you explain that your best friend and the guy you had real feelings for are now holding hands, and no one seems to care that you're breaking? I started staying late at school. Volunteered for stuff I didn't even care about. Drama club, yearbook, even student council meetings. Not because I suddenly loved extracurriculars, but because home felt heavier than it used to. And being alone in my room, with all the memories, all the echo of what I'd lost, was unbearable. One night, my mom came in and asked if something had happened between me and Liv. I almost broke then. But I didn't. I just said we drifted. That I was fine. And she nodded like she believed me. Or maybe like she wanted to. But I wasn't fine. I felt erased. Like the parts of me that existed with Liv and Eric didn't matter anymore because they were building something new without me. I questioned everything. Was I not good enough? Not pretty enough? Too much? Too boring? I'd lie in bed replaying moments, dissecting every interaction, wondering if there was something I missed. A sign. A warning. Anything. Eventually, I stopped trying to be okay. I gave myself permission to be angry. To be sad. I started writing everything down. Not for a blog or a post, but just for me. Every ugly feeling. Every unanswered question. Every time I wanted to scream or cry or rewind the world. And weirdly, that helped. A little. And slowly, very slowly, I realized something. Rejection doesn't define you. It hurts, yes. It changes you. But it doesn't decide your worth. That power belongs to you. And maybe Liv and Eric were meant for each other. Or maybe they were just two selfish people who didn't know how to be kind. Either way, I wasn't going to let that chapter be my whole story. Because I'm still here. Still standing. Still becoming. And someday, when I'm surrounded by people who see me, really see me, I'll be glad I walked away from those who didn't. After that week, something in me shut off. I wasn't angry, not in the loud, throw-a-fit way. I was just numb. I didn't unfollow Liv or Eric. I didn't block them. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't post anything sad or cryptic. I just went quiet. Internally and externally. My mom noticed I wasn't talking much, that I wasn't texting Liv all night like I used to. I think she assumed it was just school stress. And I let her think that. I didn't want to explain the hollow space where a friendship used to live. I didn't want to say out loud that I felt like someone I loved had chosen someone else, twice. Eric choosing Liv was one thing. But Liv choosing Eric, knowing how I felt, was what truly broke me. I kept replaying old conversations in my head. Times when I had told her how I felt about him, how confused I was, how much it hurt that he wasn't seeing me that way. And she would nod and say things like, "He's just not ready," or "You're too good for him anyway." Lies, maybe. Or maybe just things people say when they're pretending they're not already slipping behind your back. I stopped going to the cafeteria for lunch. Instead, I'd bring a granola bar and sit in the library. I said I had to study, which wasn't even a lie. I threw myself into academics. Honor roll. Club meetings. Volunteering. I tried to fill the space with achievements. Tried to feel worthy in other ways. And to be fair, it worked. Kind of. Teachers praised me. Other students started asking me to join projects. I made surface-level friends. But I never let anyone in the way I had let Liv in. That trust had been broken, and I didn't know how to rebuild it. One night in December, I was walking home from a holiday event at school, and I saw them. Eric and Liv. In his car. They were kissing. And I just froze. It was dark, they didn't see me. But I saw everything. The way he smiled against her cheek. The way she held his face like he was the best thing that had ever happened to her. And maybe he was, for her. I didn't cry. Not that night. I walked home in the cold, let the silence wrap around me like a blanket. I made myself a cup of tea. I studied for a test. I went to bed early. The crying came 2 nights later. It was a Thursday. I was brushing my teeth and I just looked in the mirror too long. Something cracked. I slid down the wall of the bathroom and sobbed into my knees. It wasn't about him anymore. Or her. It was about feeling invisible. Replaceable. Like I was only worth something when I could be useful. Like people only loved me until someone better came along. That became a core belief I didn't even know was forming. And it followed me into every friendship after that. Every relationship. I became careful, measured, quiet in my feelings. I didn't tell people when I liked them. I didn't let friends get too close. I smiled and supported everyone, but I didn't expect them to stay. Rejection had trained me to always have one foot out the door emotionally, just in case. It's wild how something that happens at 16 can ripple through your 20s. It's not like I was obsessed with Eric, or that Liv was the only friend I ever had. But the way it all unfolded, the silence, the betrayal, the replacement, rewrote something in me. That's the thing about rejection. It doesn't just end when the moment passes. Sometimes it plants seeds. Seeds of doubt. Seeds of shame. And unless you're really intentional about digging them up, they grow quietly, wrapping around your self-worth like vines. I didn't know that then. I just thought I had to move on. Be cool. Be strong. Don't let it show. So that's what I did. I went through junior year like a ghost in makeup. Perfect grades, fake laughs, polite conversations. But nothing real. Nothing that touched the parts of me that were still aching. I watched Liv from across classrooms, watched her smile at teachers, braid her hair at her desk, giggle in the hallway. I never hated her. That would have been easier. I just missed her. And I hated that I missed her. That I still wanted to text her when something funny happened. That I still knew her Starbucks order by heart. That even after everything, she still felt like home in my memory. I guess that's the other part of rejection no one talks about, how it can hurt and still not turn into anger. How missing someone and mourning them isn't always clean or justified. Sometimes you lose someone, and the pain just lingers without a neat story to explain it away. And that's what it was. Lingering. Quiet. Unresolved. Until one day, it wasn't. I wish I could say that after that year, things got better. That I moved on, found new friends, someone who saw me, chose me, stayed. But the truth is, rejection doesn't just disappear. It lingers. It changes how you show up in the world. I started second-guessing everything, every smile someone gave me, every text I got. Was it real? Was I just a placeholder? Would they leave too, the second someone better came along? I'd nod along in conversations, laugh at the right moments, but never say too much. I didn't want to be too much again. Not too emotional. Not too attached. Not too invested. People liked you more when you were easy, light, unbothered. So I became that version of me, polished, pleasant, perfectly fine. But inside, I was still that girl on the bathroom floor, holding back sobs so no one could hear. When Liv and Eric broke up months later, it didn't feel like justice. It felt empty. She reached out once, some vague apology buried in small talk. I didn't bite. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. That kind of betrayal doesn't get patched up with a, "Hey, have you been?" I had learned to live with the absence, the silence, the space they left behind. And somehow I survived it. Scarred, yes, but stronger. Cautious, but not bitter. I told myself I'd never let anyone get that close again unless they proved they were different. But that kind of guardedness, it doesn't protect you. It just isolates you. Still, I didn't know how to be any other way. Not yet. So I stayed in that in-between space, not hurt, not healed. Just waiting. For what I didn't know. Maybe someone who'd show me that not everyone leaves. College was supposed to be a fresh start. New city, new people, no history trailing behind me like a shadow. And for a while, it worked. I made friends in my dorm, joined a few clubs, kept things surface level but fun. It was the first time in years I didn't feel like I had to watch my back. Nobody knew the story of me, Liv, and Eric. I wasn't the girl who got left. I was just me. And then there was Leo. He was in my psych class, late to everything, always scribbling notes on scraps of paper, and somehow still pulling better grades than everyone else. He sat next to me one day and cracked a joke about the professor's PowerPoint font being aggressively Comic Sans. I laughed. Actually laughed. And something cracked open in me. He wasn't trying too hard. He didn't talk over me. He just showed up. Slowly, we became friends. Study partners. Cafeteria companions. People started teasing us, saying we looked good together, asking if we were dating. I always brushed it off with a smile. I didn't want to ruin anything. But Leo didn't back off. If anything, he leaned in more. He'd wait for me after class. Send me songs that sounded like my brain. Bring me my favorite tea during exam week. One night, we were sitting under a string of lights outside the library, and he said, "You know I like you, right?" And my chest tightened. Not because I didn't feel the same I did, but because the last time someone looked at me like that, it didn't end well. I mumbled something about figuring stuff out, and not wanting to mess up what we had. He nodded, gently, said he understood. But something shifted after that. Not in a bad way. He didn't pull away. He didn't push, either. He just gave me space. Quiet, respectful space. And for the first time, I realized that maybe rejection didn't always have to come wrapped in shame. Maybe not being ready was okay. Maybe people could care and still wait. Or at least, try. It took me almost a year to stop flinching at kindness. To stop interpreting patience as pity. To stop thinking that love had to be earned by shrinking, by proving, by enduring. Leo stayed. Not in a grand way. He just kept showing up quiet, steady, warm. Like a song you don't realize is your favorite until you catch yourself humming it at midnight. I told him one day, out of nowhere, "I think I'm ready now." He looked up from his coffee, gave the softest smile, and said, "I never needed you to be ready for me. I just needed you to feel ready for yourself." And something in me let go. I used to believe that being too much was my curse, too emotional, too intense, too sensitive. But the truth is, I was never too anything. I just hadn't met people who could meet me where I was. Liv reached out once, a year later. A short message. "I'm sorry for how things ended. I think about you sometimes." I stared at it for a long time. I didn't need revenge. I didn't even need an explanation anymore. I just replied, "I hope you're well." And meant it. Eric? He became someone else's lesson. I don't think about him much anymore. But me? I learned that rejection isn't the end of the story, it's the redirection. It's the painful pruning before something stronger grows in its place. And Leo? He never ran from my too much. He just held out his hand and said, "Come as you are." I used to think love was something I had to beg for. Now I know, the right people don't ask you to beg. They just choose you. Gently. Daily. And that's enough.